Boing, 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 boing. Hey, this is Eb. I'm here with another instrument. This is more of a conversation. I want to talk about refinishing old guitars. Today, there's a few things to consider. A lot of people think about it. They see an old instrument, maybe it's a family instrument or one they picked up, and they think, oh man, it looks really bad. I'd like to have it refinished. I'd like to have it back looking just like it was when our family bought it 80 years ago. And it's a really neat, it's a really sweet, comes from a sincere place where people are thinking they want to do right by the instrument and the tradition of the instrument. But in general, refinishes just on old instruments just aren't a great idea. The whole value thing, a lot of people say, oh, if I send it back to the factory, it'll have original value. It just doesn't hold up in reality. It's a nice idea, but it's kind of like, I joke, it's kind of like taking a 1967 Chevelle Super Sport and sending it over to your local Chevy dealership to have them do a refinish, or even worse, sending it back to Detroit and having them do a refinish on it. Nobody's going to look at that and want to pay for it like it's been kept in a box for 60 years. They're going to know this is not an original finish, even if it looks nice. So if there's finishing issues and there's touch-ups, deal with a local professional who knows vintage instruments and lacquer and finishing for really bad damages and scratches and that kind of stuff. But otherwise, taking off the original finish and putting something else on there just doesn't help the value. Most buyers and dealers would much prefer a rough player grade finish on an old guitar than a brand new one that looks like a brand new instrument, not a vintage instrument. People are buying it because it's vintage, and the new finishes, for the most part, very rarely do they look cool and old. So a lot of times they look like a new guitar right out of Asia, out of one of these, like a big factory guitar. They're just really glossy and thick, and the bursts are different. The tone of it, you just look at it and it looks like a new, inexpensive import guitar. That's been mostly my experience. So when I see it, and things done it. So then I want to get to the next part of this, and that is, what if the guitar's already been refinished and I would like to have it refinished again? Well, if you've done a little bit of woodworking, you know to get through a finish, you've got to remove it. When you get through there, you get into the original wood, and then you need to get that wood clean so it's a nice clean canvas. Well, fine instruments have a lot of string tension on them, and they have to be able to hold up to like 180 pounds of string tension on a lot of acoustics. So the thickness of the top is part of its strength. And there's a fine line between strength to be able to hold that tension and still sound good. One side of it, if you get it too rigid, it'll hold the strings forever and never have any problems, but it'll sound terrible. It won't respond to the strings. On the other side of the thickness, if you go too thin, it'll sound really, really good, but it'll fall apart in years under all the tension. When we're talking about a 12-string instrument, that's way over. It's over 200 pounds of string tension on there. Big time tension. So when you start getting into sanding into that original wood, you're thinning this top wood, which is part of your strength, and compromising. If you're talking about a guitar that's already been refinished, it's already thinner than it should be, and a lot of those refins are really rough, and if you wanted it to actually look pretty underneath, you'd have to sand through back down into the wood to get through all the scratch marks, a lot of stains a lot of times, is what you wind up with is something, a compromised strength top that would look really pretty and fall apart. This one didn't actually look pretty when it was redone, but it was definitely compromised, and that's what I wanted to show off here. I checked this with my caliper here, but it was sanded to the point where on this little portion, I don't know if you can see right there, but there's a huge gap where it was sanded out right there next to the bridge. A lot of places it's really thin. I was able to measure, this top measures at 120 thousandths thickness in the places right under the fingerboard where it wasn't sanded. Over here in these other areas, it's down to like 40 thousandths. It's a third of its actual thickness. So because of that, this guitar completely collapsed in on itself. It couldn't hold the tension. They actually sanded through the inlaid rosette there. So a lot of times, in my personal opinion, if it's an old refin and it's holding up together, I think an old refin is better than, that looks kind of cool, is better than having to put a new top on there because you sanded it down too far. It's definitely way better than having your uncle who works on furniture really sand it down. He could sand down a piece of furniture and it could lose a lot of wood and be totally fine and work the same, but that's not the case on guitars. So, really think a lot about that. A new finish is not better than old finish. The old finish gets more brittle and sounds better. There's a thinness to it after it's totally cured, and the weight of it. There's all kinds of stuff that you're just not going to get out of a refin. So that's just part of the conversation. We could talk all day about that. Us guitar people do talk about that all day. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a little bit. I hope you think really hard before you start tearing into an 80-year-old instrument. And I think it's great to learn to love and appreciate them and all the little scars they picked up along the way. That's who that instrument is, just like ourselves. So if you've enjoyed this, please hit that like button down there, the little thumbs up, and that'll help more people see it. If you have a friend that you think has been considering doing something terrible to an instrument, like stripping the finish off, send them this video, please. And it's something worth talking about and thinking about. A lot of people, I've had many conversations with clients, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know what I was thinking. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Would you please do this?" And then you talk to them like, "Oh, you're right. That is not the best thing for this instrument." So think about that. Send it to a friend. And if you want to see more interesting videos like this and the eventual finished video of this guitar after it, this one will require a new top. There's no saving this trashed top. So if you want to see that someday, hit that subscribe button down there. Thanks for watching.